It's November 21st at 8:31 a.m. and I see we have a quorum of the board, and I'll call this meeting to order and turn it over to John. Or turn it over to...
And I'm Jim, and I'm going to turn it over to John.
Well, thanks. Thanks for meeting with me, everyone, inviting me to your meeting this morning. On Tuesday of this week, we met with the Finance Committee and went through the detail of the audit. And just to kind of summarize, the audit went very, very well this year. We are in a position this morning where we're going to be issuing an unmodified opinion on Uplift's financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. We've also issued our single audit reports on the major financial federal assistance programs. We audited the Title I program as well as the special education cluster, and had an unqualified opinion on compliance with the major financial federal assistance programs, and also had no findings on the report on internal control over compliance. So again, I can't thank Jim and Bessie and the rest of the staff enough for all their cooperation and hard work. We didn't have any findings. We went through the finding from last year, and that has been completely resolved.
And I'll add a couple comments and ask you to add some, but obviously for those who've been around, this is a monumental achievement, because in the past we used to have this meeting as late as December, whatever, the last day of the deadline or whatever, and we always had findings, and to get to the point where we're getting financial reporting done more timely and getting them done more accurately is really something to be celebrated. And so, again, congratulations to Bessie, you, and Jim, and I know the rest of the team worked hard to get it done.
Yeah, I concur with Richard. I remember when I first got on the audit committee, and Carrie had said, hey, I got this great board opportunity, and I remember seeing the financial statements and going through them and getting a material weakness, and as being an auditor, to issue them is painful, but to get one, you're like, oh geez, what do we do? And then we're doing accounting research and that sort of thing, but nevertheless, it was a great learning experience. And so knowing that you guys were able to come in and actually get through it in the most timely fashion that we've had an audit done is a tremendous saying to the team that we've got in place that's actually executing it. One of the things that we challenged we were on is next year, so thinking about ways in which we could actually gain some additional efficiencies and document the controls that we have so they can take more of a control reliant strategy. So maybe we can actually get a little bit better, because we can't expect that next year will be as smoothly. We might have some more difficult transactions, but let's nail down the processes that we have so that we can actually gain those efficiencies back in some other ways. And so we're not saying cut our audit fee, but we're saying let's spend our money a little bit wiser. That's an action. So that's all I have to say. Karen?
Yeah, I just told Ed, we have material weakness, but we'll work through it. We'll get over it.
Yeah.
I mean, Richard and I were around when we had one accountant, and it was really a bootstraps kind of thing back in 2006, 2007. So we've come a long, long way, and so this is good. Yeah, not only where did we have material weakness when you were coming in, we also had a restatement.
Mm-hmm.
So those are scary, but we worked through it.
And we have a picture to commemorate that lineage of controller CFO.
Yeah.
At the
From the
dinner
party,
with
yeah.
Gene and Bill and others. So it was a great picture. Any questions? Any comments, John?
Well, one thing, thank you. I appreciate the team, and I also appreciate that I had a great predecessor who was helpful during this process to make sure we stay on track. Usually I would go through a little review of the statements. If you are all want to do that, I will do that. So touch some highlights if you think that's appropriate.
Do people have a chance to flip them? I know the final version came out yesterday, so if you'd like 5 minutes, high level of the statements, we can do that. Great,
Okay.
perfect.
So page 3, balance sheet, assets up by 4 million. They're up by 4 million.
It's okay, once you're coming down to Cam, we have multiple copies.
Small growth of 4 million, most of it. There were two major items. Capital assets keep growing as our school base keeps growing. That is a major gain. And on the other side, restricted cash is down quite a bit, 97 million to 45 million, and that's due to basically the timing of the bond. Our total liabilities declined slightly. That's due mainly because we paid down the bonds and we did not have the bond issue until in 2018. We had it in, 2019 fiscal year, we had it in August. Net assets have improved by $7 million year over year. On page 4, we now have 2 categories instead of 3, without donor restrictions and with donor restrictions. Total revenue, 209 million. That was comprised of local revenue of 12 million, state revenue of 5 million, and then federal programs of 22 million. If we go to pages 6 and 7 on our statement of activities, revenues and expenses grew year over year relatively at the same pace as revenue grew. If we go to page 8, statements of cash flow, you notice there is only one this year. We changed what we used to provide both the direct and indirect method, and we went to indirect only. We think this is probably more investors view things this way, and same information. I think it's proper disclosure, and it's also much easier to put together as an accounting team. Page 9, this is new disclosure. This matrix where you have services on one axle and areas in the next axle. I think if you look at all these different matrices, all these different points in this matrix, everything is growing as we continue to grow. There's not anything that's really out of whack. On page 10, note 2, under adoption of accounting standards, that second paragraph is a new disclosure this year. And then basis of presentation is also some new parts in that disclosure. Page 14, restricted cash and cash equivalents. There again, you see the large decline from 18 to 19 due to the construction restricted cash in the construction account, and that again is due to the bond financing being moved from May to September. Question 18. Question 18 sounds like a test. Note 7.
We're giving a test afterwards.
Contributions receivable. This is the bottom is new disclosure, or more detailed disclosure, not new, but more detailed disclosure, where we go into conditional promises and deferred revenue. Note 8, capital assets. You can see again, we talked about this before, as we keep adding schools, our net capital assets now are 342 million. Page 22, under notes payable, the last paragraph. I'm just highlighting here in this notes payable footnotes the new things that we did during the year. We have one new unsecured note payable. When we bought the property that Summit was on, there's a note in there where we pay them about $100,000 a year until the law changes about tax deferrability on rental properties to charter schools.
Where is that disclosure again?
The last
22, notes payable, last paragraph.
Okay.
And then on page 23, the new pieces, and this is the top of page 23, this is our footnote on our credit, 60 million total credit facilities at Regions Bank. Everything, all the other, and then everything else is the same on that important disclosure. Page 27, note 16, evaluation of subsequent events. This goes through our bond offering in September and, August, in August. And we have this, we showed the board what's gonna happen to this year's income statement due to buying back the 2012 bonds. For this year, it's just a paragraph disclosure outlining what the transaction was. If I can draw your attention to page 31. This is the analysis, for budget to variance, and we called out three items. 5740 other revenue from local sources. This is a very hard thing to forecast and budget correctly because it depends on timing. That's not due to us, it's due to our donors. Plus, until we get the description, we don't know how it should be categorized, if there's any conditions on that or not. The other two items dealt in that have footnotes because of the size of the variance, or basically in two programs. The federal program is a variance because the Fed fiscal year is October, while our fiscal year is July, so we have trouble forecasting, what our fiscal year it's gonna go in. And then on the other one, that was a state program related. State program funding was more of a timing issue that we had in our amended budget to what we actually accounted for at the end of the year. So from what I've seen the last 2 years, we're a little better off in our forecasting ability, and I think what we're doing in accounting with closing, we're gonna start to close quarterly and monthly, and then it's a lot easier to, then our forecasters can actually have actuals to compare it to, instead of we're kind of blind when you only close once a year. So that's the biggest process improvement that we're doing for this next, that we're starting now, is internal, semi-hard closes monthly. And then integrate, and then having my budget people be able to use those closes in their forecasting, and that should improve our forecastability. And that's about it, because everything else are all the bond schedules, which are no change from last year because we didn't issue a new bond. And then we talked about what his reports are going to be, and that's page 41 through 43 and 44. And no findings, no witnesses, etc. And that's the quick, more than 5-minute summary.
It's okay, that was a great high level of it.
Do you have any specific questions that I can answer?
So if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept the audit.
Motion to accept the audit?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So a motion passes unanimously. Anything else?
We were gonna go into a quick closed session so I could give you an update on the CMO office space, if that's okay.
Okay.
So,
That's
this is just an update, there's no vote.
that's on the December 3rd agenda.
Oh, not for me to give, I thought I was giving an update also.
But it may be worth having a little small, short discussion and revisit as well, because I actually just asked Richard a question about that, so. If
You
there's,
don't have a little
No,
session, I'm sorry, I thought you had.
No, I
Okay.
yeah, I put it on the 3rd.
Okay, that's okay.
Sorry.
No, I don't need that. Okay, I can talk to you privately afterwards.
Okay.
I just can't talk to you as a forum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. I can do a
Great.
small group.
Okay,
Meeting's
That's fine.
adjourned.
Yeah.
The meeting, you go
Yeah,
ahead and
there
close
it
the
is.
meeting.
8:45.
awesome, thank you.